So Trey Sermon entered the transfer portal, and we're going to talk about it after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. This is a sports talk show. And we got to talk about Trey Sermon choosing to do what he had been rumored to be thinking about doing, going back as far as November when he blew out his ACL. So many of you know all about the Preacher Man. The Preacher Man burst on the scene in 2017, had 121 carries for 744 yards. This is also following a year in which Oklahoma made the college football playoff with the one loss in the regular season at Iowa State, then, losing the Rose Bowl to Georgia. Next year, Preacher Man comes back with 164 carries for 947 yards, and we think that he's actually going to battle Kennedy Brooks for the feature back spot because Kennedy Brooks had also rushed for like 9.9 yards per carry going into the end of that 2018 season, so much so that people were having a really great conversation about why Kennedy Brooks didn't get more touches over a guy like Trey Sermon, who reminds me a lot of Le'Veon Bell when we're talking about how he is able to catch the ball out of the backfield, his really patient style of running, almost too patient in some ways, where you kind of want him to just hit the hole going for full speed, but he would wait, bide his time, still pop off. 3 seasons, over 2,000 yards rushing from scrimmage with 22 touchdowns. It's not a small thing. And it's also not a small thing when you think about just how little he was used in 2019. So, hold on a second. So, 2019, he burst onto the scene with 11 carries, 91 yards against Houston. And then he's getting touches, but he's not getting as many touches as you might like to see him. 10 here, 7 there, all the way through the Kansas game. Famously didn't get any touches in the game against Texas, which, was more about the defense. But by that time, all of us are beginning to look around and go, Lincoln, why aren't you drawing up more plays for Trey Sermon? Why aren't you drawing up more plays for the Preacher Man? To which Lincoln basically said, I kind of am, but when we're talking about dumping the ball off, that's at the quarterback's discretion, and Jalen Hurts just wasn't dumping the ball off. So go through the next 3 games, he gets all the 9 carries and then blows out his knee against Iowa State, and he's been on the shelf ever since. Now going into spring ball, before we had all of this other nonsense breakout, the running back depth chart at Oklahoma looked like Kennedy Brooks, Trey Sermon, Ramondre Stevenson with an asterisk because we're thinking that he's going to miss the next 5 games due to suspension. Marcus Major, who's limited and has had, been limited since August when he had the shoulder thing happen. TJ Pledger, who has either not had a whole lot of opportunities or been injured. And then Seth McGowan, who many people are putting their hopes and dreams on because he reminds a lot of us like a Samaje Perine, just a big, strong dude, but he's also a pretty good catcher of the ball out of the backfield. He could be both Samaje, he could be Rodney Anderson, he could be a dud. I don't think he's going to be a dud, but I do know he's probably the pound-for-pound strongest dude on campus right now, and that's not a small thing. So Oklahoma's running back depth takes a hit right as some good news happened. Gerald McCoy's kid committed to play football at Oklahoma as a wide receiver. A wide receiver depth is going to be a thing in 2020, but now the unexpected bit of running back drama with Sermon going into the portal as a grad transfer, not necessarily what you want. Now, I know that Ohio State needs a running back because they lost the first string running back, Master Teague, to a blown Achilles. Marcus Crowley is on the shelf, regardless of whether or not anybody plays spring ball, because he's coming back from injury. And then Steele Chambers was supposed to get a bunch of the carries during spring ball, but again, here we are. They'll have a couple of dudes coming in the summer, but could Trey Sermon be one of them? I think there's a market for Trey Sermon, but I don't think it's at Georgia, like a lot of people have said. Georgia's stocked up on running backs. Zamir White to Kendall Milton to Kenny McIntosh to Dejon Edwards. They're fine, okay? I don't think that they're looking to take another running back. Georgia Tech, on the other hand, might ask Trey Sermon to come on down, being from Georgia. I think Ohio State is actually the move here because he fits right into what they're doing. He's a great complement to whatever it is Justin Fields wants to do. He's a great all-purpose back, and wouldn't it be great as a form of symmetry because Ohio State's fans know all about Trey Sermon and Dustin Pass defensive backs. I like this move for him personally. I like this move to help Ohio State. But for Oklahoma, yeah, man, that Jace McClellan thing still is showing ramifications. Add to that, the running back coach that recruited Trey Sermon bolted for Texas, right? So could Texas be on the docket for Trey Sermon? I don't think so, but I wouldn't put it past Jay Boulware or Tom Herman to try to pick him off, because Roschon Johnson has filled that secondary back position very well. I think he's going to keep it. Keontae Ingram is probably going to be the first string running back, but Jordan Whittington coming back could be great. Daniel Young obviously could be great. I think he'd be going to battle with Bijan Robinson for carries, and right now, I'm not certain that Trey Sermon is a better running back than Bijan Robinson, but it's kind of like a Sam Ehlinger, Spencer Rattler, tail of the tape kind of deal. Trey Sermon has all of the production that you would want to see from a guy to show you that he's capable. It's just he's going to be coming back from a knee injury, and can he be full speed? Whereas Bijan Robinson rushed for 2,000 yards each of the last 3 years coming out of high school. So it's anybody's guess as to what that could be. But there's not lots of folks that are going to be in on the Trey Sermon sweepstakes. I don't think that Sermon would announce that he's transferring if he did not have a place to transfer already. Because this has been a rumor for so long, I got to believe that he's been shopped around perhaps by his high school coach to find out who or what he could be doing. I think a dark horse here is LSU. Not because LSU is so hard up for running backs that are talented, but they just might want to add some depth. I get that everybody likes John Emery. I get that everybody likes Curry, and that's okay. I'm with that. I like Ty Davis Price as much as everybody else, but depth is depth. And one of the things that we know about the running back position in general, but especially at college football, is you can never have too many, because somebody's going to get hurt, somebody's going to get injured, somebody's going to get in trouble, somebody's going to have the hot hand, somebody's not going to have the hot hand. There's lots of places for him to end up. That's just one of them. Another that I would be very interested to see how that works out is Florida or Tennessee, based entirely on what is Zeke going to do. Zach Evans is still very much out there. I don't think Zach Evans is in play for Oklahoma. I've said that before. I'll continue to say it. He's not in play for Oklahoma. But he is in play for Tennessee. He is in play for Florida. He is in play for Texas A&M. And that's also 3 places where a guy like Trey Sermon could end up. And I think that people are going to wait and see with Zach Evans, perhaps because you think you have a shot. But if you don't think you have a shot, say Tennessee or maybe Texas A&M, you might want to go get Trey Sermon, because we know that that has been a great place for former Oklahoma players to land in the Kevin Sumlin era. We'll see what that means for the Jimbo Fisher era, because I know that Isaiah Spiller is good, but is he what you want to pin your hopes and dreams on? Now, I know there's some A&M fans that are probably going to feel some kind of way about that, but I don't care. I want Trey Sermon to end up at a place where he's going to get touched, he's going to get opportunities to carry the rock, and I can't think of a more prominent running back prospect in the transfer portal right now other than perhaps Ricky Slade coming out of Penn State, but he's not going to be immediately eligible. That's the other part about this that is really fascinating. Because he's going to be immediately eligible, and because we have worked through this process of restrictions in conference or wherever for a Trey Sermon to end up where he needs to be, there's a market, right? And it's a buyer's market. I mean, he's obviously, it's a seller's market because he's selling himself. I think that there's some dark horses that I'm not mentioning, like USC, for instance, that could show up. But at this point, yeah, it's mostly speculation, but it's also really the only loser here is Oklahoma. Because you've seen basically the only other guy with more than 150 carries go into the portal. I don't think that Riley would have drawn it up that way. I certainly don't think he would have drawn it up that way in the current climate where everybody is in a recruiting dead period. That's the other part about this that makes this fascinating. It means that there's no off-campus or on-campus recruiting. It means there's no evals, right? There's no contact. You can recruit by phone, but how are you going to recruit by phone? Also, Oklahoma's running out of, are you going to do FaceTime? Are you going to text? Are you going to DM? All those things. You would want to get Trey Sermon on campus, which is another reason why I thought this is an interesting time for him to put his name in the portal. Perhaps wait until, we figure out what's going to happen and when spring ball comes back, or just finish the semester. But it's going to be like a 10th guy or something that's gone into the portal. Most of these have been defensive dudes that are basically washing out from the scheme that Grinch was running, where he was very clear in his comments earlier this week where he said, look, if you didn't see a guy playing on my defense That's because that guy wasn't ready to play. I wanted to play as many people as I possibly could play. So if a guy didn't play, he wasn't ready to play. Yeesh. I don't know that that's the case for Oklahoma. I don't think that's the case for Lincoln Riley, but maybe it's the case for Jay Boulware. Maybe DeMarco Murray was not actually who Trey Sermon wanted to play for. Maybe it's just that he did not want to have to deal with a Ramondre Stevenson coming back or a Marcus Major coming into the fold from injury, TJ Pledger, Seth McGowan. It's curious. Now, I don't think it's an Abdul Adams situation like many people have said, because Abdul Adams fumbled the ball the one time, then was never heard from again. Oh yeah, maybe it is an Abdul Adams situation. And not that Trey Sermon fumbled the ball, but because you didn't find ways to get him the ball. And because running back is such a dependent position, I could totally see why a guy like Sermon would be like, no, I'm going to go somewhere where I'm going to be the tailback, where I'm going to be the master of my fate, right? That's why Ohio State's such a big deal to me right now. The dude could play one season there, could go to a program that's probably going to win the Big Ten again, probably going to make the college football playoff again, probably going to have a better defense than Oklahoma, certainly is going to have a proven quarterback in Justin Fields, and maybe he gets to run roughshod over some people that ain't very good. We'll see. I don't think that the situation for Sermon was turning out to be what the situation at Ohio State could be, which is that Kennedy Brooks is going to be your bell cow back, and then we'll see what the young pups can do. I also don't think that Sermon was really interested in not getting as many carries. I mean, who wouldn't be? If you knew you could go somewhere where you're going to get 200 attempts or 250 attempts or bless you 300 attempts like a Chuba Hubbard, you're probably going to go play for that team, because I think he would have had much more fun playing in a program like, let's say, what Chuba Hubbard got to play in last year, where he got 300 plus attempts and he rushed for 2,000 yards, and it wouldn't necessarily matter that he didn't get to play for a conference championship or in a college football playoff or any of that. I think that we overblow how big a deal it is for many of these kids to win national championships. Isaiah Pryor was a safety for Ohio State who went into the portal in October, came out at Notre Dame, missed an opportunity to win a Big Ten championship and play in the college football playoff because he wants to play. I get that. I totally understand that. And I always tell the kids, go where it is you're going to play. Go where it is you're going to have fun. Because it ain't worth it if you're not having any fun. I mean, I do this show because I like having a good time and I like talking about this stuff. I also like talking about the ramifications of these things, because the domino effect going back to Jace McClellan is clear. Maybe Sermon comes out a bit sooner if McClellan signs his national letter of intent to Oklahoma. That's also something to think about. Because if he decided to go into the portal right before the spring started, maybe we're talking about this in a different light. Maybe Oklahoma gets to add another guy like, say, Corey Warren to the fold to make up for that. There's reasons for why they let up on some running backs that they were recruiting, because they thought they were pretty good with the one in Seth McGowan. They'll probably get two in 2021. But the need is the need, right? And you're basically an injury away from having to play Marcus Major, TJ Pledger, and Seth McGowan way more than you want to. And let's assume that you have a Rodney Anderson type situation. Cool. Gives an opportunity for a guy like Kennedy Brooks to step up. That ain't always how it works out. What's been fascinating about Oklahoma, especially in the Lincoln Riley era, is just how lucky OU has been. Now, you don't get lucky without work, so I want to be clear about that. Riley and his staff put in the work. They make sure that the team puts in the work. So when they have an opportunity for luck to break their way, usually does. Like you're taking a look at the college football playoff. How did they get the 4th ranking? Well, Oregon took an L to Arizona State, and Oregon won the Pac-12. You know, if Oregon beats Auburn to start the season, they're probably in. Georgia, they took an L to LSU in the SEC championship game. If other things had broken that way, maybe Georgia gets in. Because we were looking at another year of 2 SEC teams getting in if Georgia could pull off the upset and beat LSU. I just think that at some point OU's luck is going to run out. At some point, this sustaining 20 straight years without a losing season just feels like you're playing with fire at this point. Now, you still have the summer where you could add a running back and you could be fine, right? You still have the summer where you could add not another wide receiver, because Obi Obialo already took that, right? And you're getting Crutchfield, and I get that, and I understand how people feel about this talented 2019 class that's going to really be in charge at the wide receiver group. And really, looking at the offensive line, maybe Sermon knew something that Lincoln Riley is still trying to sort out, which is that maybe they just ain't that good, but we'll see, right? It's all just talk at this point. There's nothing definitive. But exploring all these options is one of the things that's fun about doing these segments and doing these shows. So, I hope that was stimulating. If it wasn't, I'm sure y'all will tell me. I mean, I uploaded a video where I was talking with Jerry Strauss about the NFL CBA, and it got 58 views, and I unlisted that. So it's very clear that this channel has spoken college football. We will stick to college football with a heavy emphasis on Oklahoma, probably mix in some Arkansas, some SEC, some Ohio State, some teams I just want to talk about. Because there's some L's that I'm willing to take, and there are other L's where I'm like, okay, fine. We'll just put that on the audio podcast where YouTube's just interesting. All right, deuces.